John Paolillo and his new book.
Yeah.
So, why don't we start with your book title and how you got there?
So the book title is called Something More. And growing up and going through all the trials and tribulations, I realized later on in life that there was something more. And I wasn't quite sure what that was. And as life got tougher, that something more became a lot clearer. So that's where the title came from.
And just so everybody knows, because this is East Haven Public Television, John's from East Haven.
Yep.
Grew up sort of near the center of town.
Born and raised on Dodge Avenue.
There you go. Yeah. East Haven High School graduate.
Yes.
Okay. And so I was particularly intrigued by, I know this is kind of off topic, your dancing experience.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that a little bit? Because I kind of did that myself, but not as well as you did.
Well, I went to all the dance studios and had my, started with Mr. Frank, who we both know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to go to a couple of other studios, and I knew that I wanted to do something in the dance, singing, acting, dancing, and went to New Haven and took the dance classes in New Haven. And then one of my friends were like, why don't we on Saturdays go to New York? So we started taking the classes in New York City, and that was a whole nother ball of wax. It was, the level was, like being in East Haven, it was a big fish in a little pond. Getting into that dance studio was horrifying. Horrifying. And then, then it just kind of comes naturally. They're like, well, if you're going to dance, you need to sing. And if you're going to sing, you need to act. So if you want to be on Broadway or off Broadway or TV, you need to be a triple threat. So I would come home and my parents made me work. So after I would work at Burger King, the midnight shift, and I would, during the day, go to New York City. My father would drop me off at the train station. I would take my singing, acting, dancing classes, my improv classes, get back on the train, come back here. He would pick me up. He would have my Burger King uniform in the car. I would change in the car. He would drop me off on Branford Hill at the Burger King, and I would work the night shift and clean all the machines and the broiler and stuff like that. And then somebody would drop me off at my home. And I did that 3 days a week. And they were like, if you do this and it's not a problem, we'll pay for all of it.
Wow.
And so they paid for all of it.
Like a scholarship to...
Well, the thing of it was that you in the book, what happened, I have ADHD and dyslexia, and I had a really hard time learning and staying focused. So what would happen was, school was a nightmare. And they realized once I graduated from high school that I wasn't the type of person to go to college. I just didn't have what it took. But it didn't mean that I wasn't worth something. And so the singing, acting, dancing ended up being the thing that worked.
Yeah. So I noticed on your website you were first with Regis and then with Kelly.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was teaching in New York City, and one of my students came in to take a dance class, and she asked me if I would come in and teach Regis a dance because he made a disco version of Tootsie.
Oh.
And I was just like, this has got to be horrendous, but let's give it a shot. And so I walked in, I met Regis, and and Regis was all like, "Whoa, what are you doing? What do you want me to do?" And he was always like high end. And I just said, you know what? I'm gonna go underneath the camera. Anything I do, you do. Will be good. And so he looked up at one of the producers. He's like, "Who's this guy? Who hired him?" So she said that she did. He was like, "We're gonna keep him." So they brought me onto the show, and then when Kelly joined in, I ended up doing the Hunky Husbands, the Halloween, Dancing with the Fans. We did a takeoff on Dancing with the Stars, And they took me all over. They took me on cruises, and they were the first people to give me kind of big exposure. Before that, I was just working with the New York Knicks, the cheerleaders, and then some off-Broadway stuff. But Regis and Kelly were the ones that gave me the boot.
Well, and as great as that is, I think a lot of folks will be interested in the cheerleading end of it. How did that work?
Well, I started a female group called Adrenaline, and they were girls from East Haven, and a couple from New Haven, and it was 5 or 6 girls, and we used to open up for recording artists, and I every time I would look at them, I'd be like, they're just as good as the Knicks cheerleaders, so. With stupidity in hand, I went and I told them that I can do the Knicks. And she was like, well, would you have a reel? Do you have? And I was like, well, I have this work that I did with Adrenaline. And she looked at it and she was like, okay. She said, let's get you on board. And from there, I ended up getting Where For New York. And there was always a dance break and music. And it was about NBC Channel 4. And the first it was summer, and they used the Knick City Dancers and myself. And then the other 3 seasons, they used me with all other dancers from all over New York. So I ended up with a year gig.
Wow. What else have you done with TV?
I've done some stuff. I mean, I've done more stuff probably off Broadway. I choreographed the Knick City Dancers. I've done. I revamped the Village People's U.S. tour. What else? I've choreographed and co-directed Mary Testa. She's a Drama Desk award winner on Broadway, very well known, and we actually put a whole show on at it's called 54 Below. Now it's called Feinstein's.
Oh.
It's a really popular place to put your shows.
How much off-Broadway did you do?
Well, I did. Well, I was. This is something okay. I was in the original cast of Rugrats for
I didn't
Nickelodeon.
see that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's in the book, but I think it's fleeting. So it was the original cast, and I was cast as a dysfunctional teddy bear, and then Mark Mothersbaugh, who that's the song "Whip It."
Yes.
He wrote all the music for the show, and they decided to take the teddy bear out and put somebody new in, but they still gave me the part, and then I did the soundtrack to the album. So I did the album, and then I got some voiceovers with Nickelodeon. So that was kind of I guess in show business I've been all over the map.
So now on your website, there's some video snippets. Did I see an exercise class in there?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So in order to pursue the singing, acting, and dancing, and the something more, I didn't have the ability to wait on tables or to work in an office. So the best thing to do was to teach. If I taught class, it was easy. I can make my hours and still audition and still kind of do the things that I need to do, go for my lessons, go for the auditions. So it kind of worked its way through, and then it became a full-time income. And then once you get into New York City and you get a little bit of a reputation, everybody wants you, and it was just a matter of staying in long enough to where everybody would want you.
It looked like it was a lot of fun on the video.
It's a lot of fun.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of fun. It hurts a little bit more now than it did in my 20s, but it's good.
You probably can't get away from that. So
No.
you live in New York now?
Yep. Live in the upper west side of Manhattan, and teach some classes. And just after writing the book, at the very end of the book, what came to be the something more was this class that I started to teach. And I had a woman in my class, and she said that she was leaving and that she would be back, but she was going in for a double mastectomy. And it just kind of like my head got cloudy, and all I can do was just like wish her the best. And then many months later, she came back and she said, I have to tell you a story. She was like, when I was going under, the anesthesiologist said to me, where do you want to go? And she said, I want to go to Johnny P's class. And the anesthesiologist leaned over and he said, what's a Johnny P class? He said, don't you want to go somewhere with like tropical trees and sand and water? And she was like, no. She's like, I'm really safe in that class. She's like, he makes me laugh. Sometimes he makes me cry. And sometimes I'm comfortable enough to fall asleep. And it was a stretch class. So the stretch class then became something bigger because I realized I was doing it to pay my rent. People were doing it to heal. So that's how it happened.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
I don't know. I mean, I think we kind of touched on everything. I just, that the something more, it was a journey. And if I could just tell, whether it's a little boy or a little girl who, and I don't know if you can do this on cable. Could you say, are there certain things you can say and can't say in cable?
No profanity. You can't sell anything.
Okay, I'm not going to sell anything. I'm selling my book.
There you go.
The thing, if I can get one thing across, that for me, being a short, fat Italian boy who was gay, who was dyslexic and had ADHD, I was put in the basement at Union School and Tuttle School because they didn't know what to do with me back then. And it was me and a little girl with Down syndrome. And they didn't know what to do with us. And so if you're fat, if you're a little bit slower, if you're different than the other kids, that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. You could do what anybody else does as long as you put your nose to the grindstone. And I think that, kids need to know that now with all the gay bashing and all the stuff that goes on, you just need to know you need to dig a little deeper than the average person. You'll find what you need to find, and you'll be successful.
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.